Suppose we have a matrix that looks a lot like this when working with a client. Things that are important down here, stuff that's showing up to get in the way over here, some common things that we do in response to those up here, and then some things that we would like to be seen doing to move ourselves closer to who and what are important to us over here. This is a pretty standard looking matrix. I've seen all of this stuff show up over my time working with clients. When we're working with the matrix with our clients or doing any act work, the primary goal is increasing psychological flexibility or widening behavioral repertoires. When we think about widening these behavioral repertoires, we want to include and bring in values whenever possible. Here we're going to take a look at linking values together in order to maximize our work with our clients. When we link values together, we enhance the power of the therapy overall. We can do it in ways that promote new behaviors in clients, which then evoke new experiences and new content, which can be worked with in the sessions. All of this new content and new experience, which is becoming evoked through the behavior change, can then be explored throughout all subsequent sessions and becomes the therapy itself. So here's how we do that. Suppose then with this client we've been discussing some of the workability of some of these away moves. So we've already laid out the foundation of toward versus away. We've done at least one matrix with the client. They're familiar with all of this already. As we explore this relationship here on this side, let's just presume, as an example, that in the next couple of days for this client, some of this stuff is going to show up. This is a safe bet because this stuff shows up quite often for this client. So it's not outside the realm of possibility that some of these thoughts and feelings might show up between now and the next time you see each other. In fact, it's fairly certain that this is going to happen. It's also okay that this is going to happen. Remember, the goal is not to make this stuff go away. The client then might agree that yes, it is quite possible that this stuff might show up for me between now and next time we see each other. What then might the client find themselves doing becomes the next question. Well, perhaps the client might engage in one of these familiar away moves. For example, they might distract themselves by throwing on a movie or watching a TV show. The client here has already labeled this as a distraction, and I would tend to agree that behavior of just throwing on a movie or a TV show or something like that might serve as just kind of numbing out, zoning out, so that they don't have to experience some of this stuff down here. That specific behavior may already be in here in one of the away moves. We may have seen that before, just watching a movie, turning on the TV, zoning out. Something might be a specific action over here already. And sure, they can do it. And we could assess that workability. There's nothing wrong with doing any of that stuff that we just mentioned. It just so happens that watching a movie, turning on a TV show, just kind of zoning out is an away move. And it also doesn't do too much to move them toward who and what are important to them. So the next step could be taking a look at this rich treasure trove of values that we've got down here. And we might do some collaborative work with the client in relation to these things. I might ask, how can we make this distraction a little bit more difficult or a little bit more challenging? If the type of distraction is watching a TV show or a movie, how might we do that? What if you could do that distraction thing first by noticing that this stuff has shown up inside of you, and then making an intentional choice to distract yourself by watching a movie or a TV show? So all we're doing here is we're adding in that intention, doing it intentionally. And then what if we could, with intention, add in some of these things here? What if you could make that choice to watch a movie and message a friend before watching the movie and say something like, "Hey, I'm feeling a bit down. I was thinking of watching a movie. What should I watch? What do you recommend? What have you been watching lately? Any good TV shows out there?" See how we've just linked this with one of these values. And of course, this conversation could take 5 minutes, or it could take 2 hours, right? It could turn into something else entirely. What if we then linked one value to another? What if instead of just throwing on a movie at home and messaging a friend and saying, "Hey, I'm thinking of watching a movie, what do you recommend?" What if we messaged that friend and said, "Hey, I'm feeling a bit down. I was thinking of catching a movie. Would you like to go with me? When are you available? What have you been interested in seeing lately? Would you like to go out and do something? I kind of just want to get out of the house. Are you free?" So all of a sudden now, the client is engaging with what was a distraction, now has turned to a conversation with a friend, and getting out of the house. This all started off as a distraction, as an away move. But when we add in and link the values to it, it becomes something else. All of a sudden, the life that exists over here is looking a lot like the life that we want to be living up here. What if, then, we notice that we're feeling this, we choose to watch a movie, but before that, we choose to message our friend and choose to ask them to go out with us to do that thing. And afterwards, what if we also made that decision to tell our family about our experience at the movie? What did we think about it? Would they enjoy it or not? Our recommendations. What do we wish had happened? What about that ending? How would you have changed it? And so on and so on. What if, after discussing it with your family, we linked it with another value, and we started poking around on the internet, looking up the director of that movie? What else have they done? And what about that other actor? What have they been in recently? Where do I recognize them from? You get the idea. As we do all this stuff, the goal here is just to notice what it feels like to be the one who is making these choices, to be the person who chooses what they want to do in any given moment. That person who chooses to do any one of these things, even in the presence of all this stuff that's showing up on the inside. Right? We're not trying to get rid of any of this stuff. So what we've done here is we've just expanded the behavioral repertoire from just this to all of this. And how much further could we go with this, right? Working together with a client. We could link all kinds of values together in all sorts of different ways. We can make it as active as we want, starting from something very simple. Now, you may already be doing something similar to this with your clients, but when we're using the matrix, it just makes it so simple, because everything's already laid out for us. The very first thing we did with that client was identify some values. So we've got them all just laid out right here. We've got all of these things here we can link together very visually with the client, if we wanted to, together in session. And when we do this with our clients, we want to do it in as an engaging and collaborative way as possible. We want to make this fun for our clients. throw around ideas back and forth, experiment, do dialogues in session, role play in session. Try to make the experience as experiential as possible. We want to be playful with our client when doing these things for two reasons. Number one, it's going to help the client stick to these things after they leave your room and actually try them out. Number two, what we're doing in actuality is reinforcing not the actions that we're listing out here, but the ability to choose. That's the thing that we're training here. The ability to notice what's going on and still make a choice. We want to reinforce this idea that choosing what you want to do and how you want to be at any given moment is possible, and that doing so is easy. It's simple. It doesn't require any special tools that come from outside of yourself. It can be done anywhere, with anybody. We want this ability to be built up for the client, so that long after they complete their work with you, they can return to this idea of choosing and noticing, of being the kind of person they want to be in any given moment. So we engage in this process of collaborating with the client, and then the client either goes out and does it or they don't do it. When they come back, we can start doing more work. If they were able to do it, we can process that all out and explore it. If they didn't do it, we can process all of that out and explore it as well. We can do another matrix, right? We can process out what showed up on the inside that got in the way of doing that thing. What did you end up doing? What would you like to have done? What would that have been like on the inside for you? If they were able to engage in it, what was that experience like for them? What did they notice about being able to choose and make that choice? That's really what I'm aiming for here. Getting in touch with that sense of being the person in the center of everything. Being that person who has that ability to notice and choose. Really getting in touch with that and noticing what that's like. Because what does that mean then? If there is a big me here in the middle who can notice what's going on and still choose what I want to do, what does that mean in terms of my depression, my anxiety, and so on? What does it mean about the power they have over me if there is still a me here who can stop and notice and choose? How does that change the relationship between me and the stuff that I'm noticing? The amount of work that can be done just by activating some of these values here is enormous. This is the reason why behavior change shouldn't be one of the latter things done in the therapeutic process. It shouldn't be the very end goal, and that's when you start the behavior change. It should be one of the very first things that is done in the therapeutic process, because it gives us so much to work with. It also helps us demonstrate the power and the beauty of working in this very behavioral way, or this very acty way, because the goal of the therapy overall is not any specific behavior change. You know, watching a movie with your friends, there's nothing special about that. But really what the power is of the therapy is the choice that is made, the intention involved. Accessing that ability to choose, that's the goal of the therapy. The psychological flexibility involved with noticing what is going on and then making a choice, but not just making a choice, choosing to make a choice about how I want to be in this given moment, even in the presence of this stuff that shows up inside of me. That's the end goal of the therapy. That is the skill that we're training here. Not the ability to go out to the movies with our friends. It just so happens that by doing one thing, we can do the other. Isn't that really cool?